Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're going to talk about CGI for car rigs. So let's dive right into it. Basically, if you want to create a CGI car, what the heck you have to do? Well, you may be like, why the heck CGI is a problem when we can build starships and all that jazz? Well, here's the deal. We can very easily tell a fake car. We can't really tell a fake spaceship because none of us have spaceship. So that creates an issue. And given the fact that car is a very complex puppy, meaning it has road feature and bumps that transfers to car body, meaning road have bumps. Now that transfer is not one-to-one. Like if road has big bump, means your car shake a lot. No, not necessarily, because you have shock absorber. That creates an extra layer of abstraction, meaning you have maybe a lot transfers very little, maybe you have a big bump that transfers like very subtly, because again shock absorbers are there. It's not just shock that's gonna just dampen it into magic. It's gonna shock and then it's gonna retract very slowly. So there is a connection which is not very direct, and whenever you do with CGI you can always figure that out, that car chassis center of gravity is not moving according to the road. It's not like, it's not organic. Like you have to spend way too much money in order to do that. So road features makes it very difficult. Then we come to another aspect of inertia, and it's one of those things that it's very difficult to convey, but we can instantly figure it out whether it's something is CG or not, simply by inertia. Our brain is really good at detecting inertia. Like, did you made a turn? Okay, did your car chassis bank accordingly? Because we can figure it out. Like, dude, you can't really do that. You have to bank around it. And again, whenever you apply brakes, like, did your car slow down? Did your hunch, things that happen, all those subtle things that you may not actively notice. It's not something that your consciousness detects. It's something that your subconscious filters through. It's like, hey, that's normal. That's the whole point of subconscious. Like, normally filter out things that are obvious, but the moment you put a CGI triggers alert. It's like, bro, it did not move accordingly, and then you're like, dude, it looks fake. That's why. So inertia also plays an very important role, because mass and velocity, all of those are not magical. It has to be there. And then car paint is the final layer. Car paint is freaking shiny, meaning it's very bright, and it's also very reflective, meaning it's gonna throw off all the reflections of the surrounding. And you can easily tell, like, this is an Indian movie. It's kind of old, but you can get the point. Like, they had a real chassis, like a real vintage car, and it's real. The moment they switch to CGI, you can figure it out. It's like, even though they had that system there, and I'm like genuinely shocked why the heck they did that. They could have just did a crane movement in order to do a better thing. And again, whenever you see way too many cars, instantly you can figure out the cars are not behaving like, like, no matter how much simulation you throw at it, there is something that we can detect fake cars. And like, it does not matter whether you have large studio, you can do it properly. For example, Moon Knight, again, people were engrossed in the story, so they did not notice it. But the moment you watch YouTube video of the this chase scene, you're like, dude, those cars look fake AF. It's like, did they had a physical car and then they painted their ass off to make sure like it looks fake, so it blends with the fake CGI? It looks bad. And again, that's the first comment is there, dude, I did not notice it looked so bad. Again, that's supposed to happen. You're supposed to be more focused on story. But again, Disney is spending money and you still have garbage. That's the whole point. Car, we can easily tell this fake, easily. So that's the problem. Car is not as easy as you may think, simply because of all the layers of abstraction. You have road interaction, you have inertia, and the paint. And that's why I think way too many bad guy cars are always bland color. It's very easy to remove the shiny part of the car, and then the like reflection is so toned down, it's like you may not notice it. So that's the problem. How do you solve it? Well, first you build a rig. Now again, this is one car company rig that I'm showing. I have linked the video down below, and what they built is very clever. Like, they were contracted again and again to do car commercials, so they figured it out to build a dedicated tool for that job. So they built a very small frame. Now, why the heck they built a small car? This is one critical aspect. It's super easy to paint things on a footage. Like, if somebody give you a footage, like, this is a footage, paint something on top of it, super easy. If somebody says remove something from the paint, it's very difficult. So the idea was, create something that no matter which car they or get contracted to do, should be, basically, you notice that the main car is always inside the frame, meaning that it does not have to paint anything out. That saves so much CGI time, and again makes the effect far more believable. And that's a subtle thing, but all those subtle things piles up. So it had to be small, so CGI must be bigger, so it's just an additive process in the editing room, not subtractive. Oh, there's this black line outline that we have to cut out. No. Then they made it electric drive. Now again, putting an engine in this sort of tiny space is just not viable. Electric engines also gives them characteristics control, meaning they can figure out how the acceleration works, deceleration works, and it's only meant for small distance shoot. So it's not like, oh, range is very small. It's like, bro, it's only for a few seconds in single time. So they can give a very high performance motor boost. So it really feels like, when they're showing that acceleration, deceleration, it feels like very high performance car, because that's the whole point of electric motors. Then they made adjustable wheelbase, meaning this puppy can be changed accordingly, meaning every car has different this. Some cars are city cars, they're very small. Some are the big boy cars, they have a bit wider. All those things can be accommodated. And basically wheel, of course, you will swap it out for accurate model. And this is one of those things they learned very early on, is like, there is no point fighting with wheel CGI. Just don't put a normal wheel that you're supposed to have in the final model. So wheel, always they will change. And steering, basically suspension system is also adjustable. This is another aspect. For example, if you are giving a contract for making a CGI for electric car, it must behave differently compared to basically combustion system, simply because electric cars are very heavy. We don't really think too much about it, but they are idiotically heavy, so their suspension behaves accordingly. But if you are running on a very tiny chassis, it's like inherently much small, tiny, you have to change the suspension so it emulates that. No, it's a big bulky system. Again, it's not gonna replicate 100%, but it's gonna create enough separation where it's like, no, it looks like. And you have to be mindful, all you have to do is good enough. If it's good enough, real enough, it's gonna trigger your subconscious to be like, okay, normal data, send it to the conscious, but you will not trigger a red alert that this is fake. That's all it has to do. So that's why suspension has to change for feel. Then it's a single seat driver. Obviously there is no point of putting two foot there. And the reason why they did not focus on making it remote control is like, if you give someone remote control with a car, they generally do things that you should not do. And you will notice it, like, dude, if somebody is inside there, unless they are driving like a maniac or it's a pre-planned stunt event, nobody does things that you're gonna do the moment you have a remote car. Like, think about this, how the heck you drive in your car racing games. Unless it goes into reality mode where you are running as a simulator, then you're like, I can't really just do whatever I want. So they have driver function also, and that gives it that really feel to it, where it's like, oh, nobody's driving like a maniac. Physical contact with the road. This company had a lot of experience with CGI, and that's the one thing they figured out. You cannot paint CGI. That's why I said adding things in CGI is super easy. Removing things you can't. And if you do not have physical contact with the road, no matter what you do, like this sort of wheel smoke, this sort of like oomph, that inertia, if you don't have road contact, good luck with CGI. Like, you can try all day long. If it's complete 360, basically complete virtual world, you can do it. But if it's like, a live action, good luck. It's not going to work very well. So physical contact with the road is very important. Shadow base for that bit system is also important. Like, shadow is not all the same size. Does not matter. It is casting a shadow. That shadow, it will be captured by the main camera, generally a cinema camera, that will have enough bit depth for CGI artists to look. That's how shadow is supposed to look. In this location, in this lighting, that's how shadow is supposed to look. You give them that data, they're like, I got you, fam. They're gonna paint a proper shadow without being like, oh, it's too dark or too little. We don't think too much about it. But again, the moment you give a VFX artist exact how it's supposed to look, they can make really amazing things. So that's how this rig became a very stable backbone of many car commercials. They're like just doing it. And not to mention, many times people are saying that these sort of systems are being used by corporations in order to, like, if they want to create a new chassis and they have like multiple chassis, they will use this rig in order to create multiple videos of like, how does it look, and then they'll run it through its spaces where people are like, you know what, I think this chassis design, this mold is better than that one. And again, it will react exactly like a real car, because it is a car. Now, this solves the physical aspect of it. It solves the inertia, it solves the physical oomph of it, but how the heck you solve the reflection part of it? Then we come to the 360 plate that it shoots, because reflection is a complex space. If you have a static reflection to do, it can be done, though not that difficult. But the moment you have something moving, it's very difficult. Like, for example, you must have seen this sort of ball. This is for lighting, this is for reflection. Now you take this, create a skybox, project this puppy on a static object, done, go home, sweet dreams. But here's the deal. This is awesome for static objects, meaning if this scene is supposed to be made into CGI, some CGI element has to be planted here, it will work flawlessly. But a car, it will not work. Why? Car is moving, so this thing will change. So you have to have this ball and look at camera looking at it. So people figured out, why not just have multiple camera looking all around? So this creates a 360 plate of it. And because the vantage point of that plate, like basically where the camera is looking from, is exactly where the car is, or supposed to be, even in CGI, it creates real plate, meaning that's exactly a real world car will look at. So that plate is projected in Skybox. Skybox projects it backwards to the chassis, and accuracy, basically rendition is absolutely accurate. Again, not the quality of rendition, that is VFX mathematics, but what it's supposed to look like will be the same. And that is another layer of your brain is like, it's good enough where your subconscious like let it pass and you don't think to it, oh, it looks fake. Like some of the systems are so goddamn good that even the company, even the engineers themselves have hard time figuring out, hey, dude, this is CGI or this. That's what happens when you have some real data. You can really make something amazing. Match reflection on the car chassis. This is the final lane in the coffin. Once you have that, and this also has a lidar sensor that allows them to create a bit more volumetric oomph, and that can add some fog effects if they need to. And they have actual real world data. This data is projected, reflection maps is created per frame, and it's matched to the video clip. You get good chassis, and that's the reason. Without this, your car will look like CGI. With this, you will have hard time, like, because here's the deal: how the heck you know how headlights is reflecting, what it's supposed to reflect? This puppy is like, I got you, fam. Render it in this basically Skybox. Skybox will allow you to render transparent, translucent materials, and voila, that 360 plate is the final system. Now we come to the final aspect of this reality, effort. Whenever you're talking about VFX, you have to understand effort is the key deal. For example, one of the very prominent thing was Iron Man 1. Now when Iron Man 1 happened, they had an issue where it's like, dude, what Iron Man supposed to do is too goddamn high. And that time Transformers started to come in. So they knew that hard surface modeling and rendering was good enough. But how do they know? They did not. So what the VFX team did was quite amazing. They built a physical model of Mark II, basically that steel armor. They built it, and then they give that data. It's like, this is how it's supposed to look like once we actually have built a practical model. And they're like, they give that. Now CGI artist studied the object, created a rendition, and then they gave it to John Favreau, figure out which one is the better like one. It's like, all they tell them is like, one is fake, one is real, as in like one is practical, one is VFX. And he was finding all sort of flaws in the practical set. And that's what happens when you give good data. Basically, if you give good data into the input, output will be realistic. If you get garbage in, garbage out, that's the whole point. And that's how they evolved that VFX in the early days of Marvel. Like, they figured it out. It's like, dude, make the damn set, make the damn prototype, use that data, give that data to the CG artist, and then the CG artist is going to be like, I got you, fam. Do not be just like, okay, just make it. Like, many times if you wonder like, why the heck Man of Steel always looks like a bit floaty, there was no set, there was no, this is the data, this is how it's supposed to look, CGI artist go. It was like, here's a green screen, CGI artist go. It's like, that's not how it works. You have to, CGI is not magic, you have to give data, otherwise it's garbage in, garbage out. And planning and time allotment is very crucial. Like, recent Disney movies are so bad in VFX. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? This is the same studio that was building Iron Man 1, and I watched Black Widow. I'm like, god damn it. That was the first movie I was like, are you serious? Like, it was so bad. The lighting was so bad. How the heck you messed it up? That's another aspect. They did not did the plate properly, so lighting was not matching, and you were like, garbage in, garbage out. It was a Disney project. So that's another aspect, planning, time allotment. And this is one thing that Fast and Furious franchise does do well. They really do love cars, and they really do spend time on car stunts and all that. Many times they have actually physically built the cars that you may think, oh, dude, that's CGI. Nah, they built it. So it takes time, and they have spent months, sometimes a year, in order to just do a stunt. So it's one of those things that you have to plan for, and you have to do time allotment. And that becomes the job of director. Director has to be the one that's like, which is the right tool here. Like, if you have some vintage car as specified, like if you have no other tool, you will use CGI. If you can use a practical system, you have to use practical system, and you have to balance it out, both of them. Okay, you may have cost constraint, you may have rendering time constraint, whatever have you, you have to be the one that filters it out. And poor management will always give you crappy result. It does not matter the technology. Technology is never at the fault. It's always at poor management. Like, Disney is creating things that are so bad that people are like, dude, how the heck? This is the same Disney that I went into school. And it's not like, oh, back in the days, like, how we think Fast and Furious, Most Wanted looked amazing. Need for Speed, Most Wanted looked amazing. Now we look at it, it's like, dude, this looks like garbage. It's not that. It was really good. How the heck that happened? Effort. You put in effort, you do proper management, you spend your time, output happens amazing. Another thing happened with Top Gun Maverick. There are many scenes that are CGI that nobody figures out. And things that are obvious CGI, you can figure it out. It's like, how the heck that happened? You give the CGI artist, dude, F-16 supposed to look like this. Take this F-16, give me 4 of that. They're like, I got you, fam. like, because I know the reflections, I know how it's supposed to behave. Only people who can tell instantaneously, dude, this is CGI, is simply pilots. And why? Because pilots like, bro, you cannot have plane this close to each other. They're like, bro, no. So that's how good CGI can be if you give them good in. Most people give them garbage and the output is garbage. And practical effects will still would be better. It's one of those things that you have to accept. Practical will be still, again, if you have constraint, if you do not have that physical chassis, for example, like this, if you don't have that, what the else can you do? But if you have the luxury of physical practical effect, do this. There is no substitute of practical effects. CGI should be added onto it, not to be like, CGI only. That looks gibberish. If you have no other choice, use CGI. Use proper CGI. Make sure you are putting quality material in. Many times, like, people will do like a whole plaque of like the paint colors and all that. Just put there, to a 360 plate and figure out how the paint is reacting, like how the paint and lighting is reacting. All that little data, the moment you give that to a VFX artist, you're just like, I got you, fam. I'm gonna give you a so realistic that you will have a hard time figuring it out, and it happens. But you give them, this is the plate, we change the scene, lighting does not match, but just go yellow on it. Is like, what? That's the final aspect of it. Effort. There is no shortcut to it. You have to make sure you do not put garbage in, otherwise garbage out. Practical still would be better, but this sort of car chassis system is being more and more used in generally for commercials, companies, and sometimes movies also. But movie, if they have big budget, they generally go for practical. Expensive, risky, but quality is just, this movie, the Ford versus Ferrari, was genuinely good, like really good. So that's why you have to understand effort in, effort out. So this was my presentation on CGI of cars in VFX industry. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.